Man, so Summer Games Fest 2025 just ended, and it was a roller coaster of emotions. They faked us out twice with Resident Evil 30th anniversary teasers, and right whenever I and everyone else had almost lost all hope, they actually did it. The cleverness of saying it's just the blink of an eye away and then showing it 30 minutes later was so unexpected. But in hindsight, we should have known. We should have known. Everybody was saying it, but I think the reason I was so hesitant to believe it is because we've heard it a million times before. It's going to be shown here at this showcase or that showcase. You know, we've been waiting for so long. If you're curious as to what it is, if you can't tell by the title and video, it is Resident Evil 9 or Resident Evil Requiem. For those of you who don't know, Requiem means remembrance of something that's gone. So it makes sense that we'd be revisiting Raccoon City, right? Remembrance. As far as my thoughts on the trailer, it looks absolutely amazing. At first I was kind of uncertain if it was Resident Evil, but once I saw Grace, which is the main protagonist, it immediately emanated Resident Evil engine, right off the bat. For those of you who don't know, Grace Ashcroft, I believe her name is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft, which I don't blame you for not knowing if that name isn't familiar. It took me a second to realize who that was. However, for vets of the franchise, you may know that she was a playable character in Resident Evil Outbreak and one of the few people to survive Raccoon City, that being Alyssa Ashcroft, of course. She's an investigative reporter who worked to expose Umbrella in the years following the incident. It seems now she's dead, of course, according to Grace's boss, which is why Grace is so nervous about going to this crime scene, right? So if anyone's curious as to how she ties into the series, now you know. Also, it definitely makes the claims of an Outbreak remake slightly more likely, or at least a remaster, seeing as we're getting the original 2 and 3 for PlayStation later this summer. However, I wouldn't bank on it. I don't think Capcom's got that on their to-do list right now. It just brings me joy to have this announced after seeing so many people say they wouldn't do it because of this or because the older games needed to be remade first. You know, Capcom does not have any kind of care or of organization whenever it comes to what games they do in what order. And I've been saying this for years now. Just because it wouldn't make sense to do RE5 Remake before CVX doesn't mean they won't. And remember that for those of you who say, oh, Resident Evil 5 Remake will be next because they don't care. They don't care. Resident Evil 5 Remake's going to make money either way. It's going to make the same amount of money either way. Besides that, we see that we are returning to Raccoon City, at least at some point. That craters where the missile made impact, and those, of course, are the ruins of the city. And it makes me wonder what kind of Easter eggs we'll find in that police station. I was talking to my friends, it'd be really cool if there's, like, you know, where it hung down, said, like, welcome Leon, like his first day. It'd be so cool if you're exploring it, and then you see on the ground, covered in dust, like, sticking out from behind a pile of rocks or under a pile of rocks, you just see Leon's name from that same, like, streamer hang-up. That would be nuts to know that it's just been sitting there for all those years, rotting and frozen in time, basically. This also possibly means that this is the end of the Raccoon City saga, which is something a lot of people have been saying. Or maybe even Resident Evil as a whole, not like as a whole, but I mean like the story we know so far, so everything from 0 all the way to 8. Seeing as this is the biggest event to have ever taken place in the franchise, that being the Raccoon City incident, going back to where it all got real seems like the perfect way to finally end the saga. Now, don't worry yourself, Resident Evil is doing better than ever right now, and the release and marketing campaign leading up to the release of Resident Evil 9 Requiem is going to push them to new heights of popularity and awesomeness. Resident Evil isn't going anywhere, but this may be the start to a new story and the end of the one we have come to know and love for years. And, finally, one last thing I want to say before I end this video is I am so proud of Resident Evil, okay? It has been around for 30 years now, which is about double my life. 17 years old, and it's doing literally better than ever, like I said earlier. I am so glad that it is considered by the gaming community as a whole, or at least enough of the gaming community to have it be decided worthy of being a show closer for possibly the biggest, if not the biggest, game show of the year. That spot could have been filled with anything else. There were some great contenders there. Dying Light Beast was a really cool one that I thought was going to be, that would have been a great spot for a closer. But it's really nice to see that Resident Evil got that spot, and I don't think anything else deserved it as much as Resident Evil did, if I'm being totally honest here. And go figure, it's because Resident Evil is the absolute shit, alright? If you're as hyped as I am for Resident Evil 9 and many other content drops we'll be getting over the next few months, then subscribe because I'll be providing updates and tons of other content, Resident Evil and horror related, because it will all be right here on the channel. It's a great day for Resident Evil fans. Hope you guys have a great night, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one. I'd hate for you to miss out. And take care, everybody. Peace.